In a world where hopium and common sense collide, starring the CryptoKeeper and BlockchainCrusader. Welcome to Debate Crypto. Question everything, trust nothing. It's your boy CryptoKeeper, and tonight it's not BlockchainCrusader. We got your boy Bill Noble. Bill, how you doing this evening, brother?
Keep, thanks for having me on the show. I'm doing good.
Guys, I got to tell you, Bill is a champion this evening. Bill is out at the store. I call him and I say, listen, Crusader's got something going on kind of last second. This was literally at 6:58, okay? And I said, any chance you don't have something going on? This man's at the store doing something. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Let me head home. And I'm like, dude, no, let me head home. So Bill, for real, I really appreciate you coming on. It is very much appreciated. And I'll tell you what, you are the perfect person to have this conversation. So I am excited.
This is a rocking topic for sure.
Heck yeah. So tonight, if you didn't catch the title, we're going to be talking about what if Republicans take the House and the Senate, or one or the other. We're going to kind of walk through those scenarios. What does it look like for us? What does it look like for the stock markets, the crypto space? And then obviously just what does it look like in general? I think a lot of people are very much affected by elections, and we'll dive into that. First off, though, make sure that you are following Bill on Twitter. I've got his link down below the video. As always, be following us at Debate Crypto and Danger Close Alpha on Twitter, trying to grow that. And then, like it says across the bottom of the screen, as it always does or has for a while, join the DCA Discord. We got a lot going on in there. Bill, I'll tell you, there's been a long riddle going on that everybody's been trying to figure out, and they figured out a big part of it today. There's a man by the name of Adam. They were figuring out where a shipment on a train was going, when it was going there, how to stop the train. And there's a story in it and whatnot, but they had figured out that it was going to the Mount Weather in Virginia is where it was headed. They figured that out pretty quick because of the coordinates that I had kind of put in there with a little tricky wording. They figured out that it was Columbus Day was when they need to basically commandeer the shipment of commodities that's going to be getting dropped before too long. And they figured out basically to reverse. It's called reverse magnetic polarity. Basically, they're switching the wires on this maglev train to stop it. And today they figured out that Adam Harvey, who has done all the biometrics like makeup, you've probably never heard of him. Come here, Boogie. Come here. Come say hi to Bill. Come here. Say hi, Mr. Bill. Hey, say hi, Mr. Bill. Say hi. You want to say hi? Say hi. All right, Addison's squirming. She needs to get back to her hardware wallet, which is below the video. Make sure to get yourself a hardware wallet, just like little Addie. Mwah, I love you. So they figured out that the AH from Berlin was Adam Harvey, who is going to basically take over the biometric recognition on the train. So I want to shout out to Brett G in the Discord. If you are in here tonight, brother, congrats. I accidentally gave the love earlier to Third Patriot. Brett, you deserve it. You got that figured out. We've got one more thing to figure out. You guys got to figure out what's up with Denzel. So that's the last little piece, and then we'll put it all together. All right, let's take a look at the markets real quick, and then we will dive into the topic at hand. Actually, Bill, I don't know if you have anything pulled up while I go over the charts. You want to do a little TA right after this?
Sure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. All right. So the markets, as I update it, are looking pretty flat. 963.05 billion with a B dollars is the global crypto market cap right now, down 0.42%. Bitcoin pretty flat, just over 20K. It seemed like it just jumped up, hit 20, and then just took ETH 1352 sitting pretty flat. And the rest of it, guys, you know how this goes. In the bear market, it's even way more obvious, or you see it just even more like they absolutely follow suit with Bitcoin almost across the board. So, Bill, let me ask you, why, or what's going on with the charts? Why are we just always following suit with Bitcoin? And what are the charts looking like to you right now as you look at them?
Okay, well, a lot of investment banks and hedge funds are approaching year end. And I think people are not paying attention. Sometimes you get like a Celsius move where it's like, thunder and lightning. And then sometimes you get these moves where everyone sort of goes to sleep.
Yeah.
And I don't think falling asleep on this market is the right move.
Okay.
This is Pax Gold.
Okay.
So, I love the Danger Close Alpha theme and community. Everybody gave up on gold here, right? The dollar was going up forever. Bloomberg Business Week had this incredible cover that the dollar was going to destroy everything. Media always are wrong. Bounce, gold smokes higher. Okay. Why is gold smoking higher? Well, if you have 5 to 8% inflation and a Fed that can't go crazy either because of the election or because they went too far, we can talk about that. All right. And this oscillator here, when it gets close to zero, it comes from Bill Williams. When that oscillator gets close to zero, big moves can happen.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I know there's probably a whole bunch of people in your Discord and there's a whole bunch of people in the prepper community that have been buying gold coins and wondering why it doesn't go up. Well, that may be about to change. That big brother Bitcoin and, or big boy Bitcoin and gold may actually start ripping higher. Pax has got to get above 1732, but don't fall asleep on Bitcoin and gold.
Let's go. I love hearing that. And if you are continuing to look for technical analysis stuff throughout the week, besides obviously around the charts on Thursdays, make sure to check out your boy Frankie Candles over on BitBoy Crypto. He's 5:30 to 5:45 to about 7:30. So you guys can roll right from TA into get your little political / crypto fix over here. Everything else. So let's dive into it. Chat. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. Thank you guys for being here. Again, you could be anywhere. You're here on a Wednesday night. So what if, or how are things going to be affected if Republicans take control? So I'm going to go through just a little bit here, a couple things. So bear with me and we'll kind of break this down piece by piece. So what happens if Republicans take the House and the Senate, or the House, the Senate, or both in 2023. And there's some big things that could drastically reshape the next 2 years before Joe Biden potentially, I heard, maybe runs for re-election and could be running against, you already know who, Donald Trump. So let's talk through a couple scenarios. So if Republicans take the House and Democrats keep the Senate, that would be a split. That would be what they call a split between the parties, right? With partisanship being so crazy, it seems that basically no legislation generally would be getting passed if this were to happen. Bill, talk to me about that. Why though? That can be a good thing though too. Why is it always this game of tug of war? It feels like just like two warring neighbors. Feels like my neighbor next door wants to put up a fence where I don't want him to, and he's on my property line, and we keep battling back and forth for where we're putting this barrier in between the two of us.
Okay, well, traditionally, financial markets like government gridlock. So if governments can't do anything, increase regulation, etc., most of the time, the economics book says the market's like that.
Okay. So there's no question mark. They're basically saying legislation isn't going to move things around, so they have some stability, and there's not like the big, where's this going to head?
Correct. Now, in this case, I'm not sure how good it is for markets because I don't know if the White House or the deep state or the far left or who's ever running the country, honestly, is going to, they've got some policies like around energy, and things like that, if you have a gridlocked government, some of that stuff's not going to get changed, right? So I don't see the people behind the White House going, the government's gridlocked and we should change our mind. So okay, we can follow the economics textbook, and government's not doing anything dumber than they're already doing can be a good thing, but it also may limit the government's response to a bigger problem, which, we can get into those bigger problems later if you like.
Yeah, I am very interested. It's funny because I was always, when I was younger, I always would like, if I ever heard somebody talking about politics, I was always like, listen, why do you care? Why does it matter? I really used to think like that. Like I would zone it out or tone it out, and I would just on to another conversation. I know that's probably crazy for some of you to hear because you hear how much I, get into the, politics side of things, at least a little bit, as it relates to our financial markets and other things. But what I've come to realize, Bill, is that it affects my everyday life as a business owner. So for me, as a business owner and a father, those two things, the father is a newer thing. My daughter's 16 months old. That's a newer thing. But as a business owner, I've noticed that depending on what is happening in our world as a whole, it genuinely affects how my business runs, things that I can do, things that I can't do. How much am I paying for materials? What am I allowed to do in one way or another when we are in, customers' homes? So what I started to recognize was that this does matter, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
do need to be at least somewhat involved in this and have an understanding of where I stand. And so for anyone that's curious, most of my, policies that I would lean towards would be right. And I think everybody probably knows that. That being said, I like to consider myself a libertarian. I really want the government to kind of stay out of my business. Bill, you don't have to claim either side or whatever, but I am curious. Is there kind of a right or left or somewhere in between that you would say you lean yourself?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to talk about it. So I grew up a Ronald Reagan Republican,
Hmm.
right? I remember being in third grade, sitting in a green Chevy Impala station wagon in January, okay, freezing because my mother had the car turned off. We were waiting in line for gas. I'm like, Mommy, why are we waiting? Why isn't the car on? She's like, oh, honey, it's too complicated. Okay, when I grew up, I found out what that was all about. And I'm like, oh, well, hell no, we're not doing this anymore. And, me and my little brother were out cheering USA when our hockey team beat the Russians and
Hmm.
Reagan was sworn in, a month later. And that's where like my political base comes from. Now, I don't know if there are any guys like me left out there, right? But, basically believing that, the government's money is the government's money. Your money is your money, and stand up to bad guys at every turn. That's
Yeah.
what I believe.
I like it. I definitely like it. And one of the things that we like to do here at Debate Crypto, and that I especially like to do, and I try to be as sensitive as I can on this front. I really try hard to stay. Now, let me rephrase this. I'm not trying to stay neutral because ultimately I think you need to take a stand. And so I very much talk about policies that I agree with or disagree with. But what I do stand up for very heavily is the conversation. The problem today is everybody is too scared to have a real conversation. You used to be able to sit down at dinner and disagree
Right.
with the person across from you about your parents might tell you don't talk politics or religion at dinner, but you used to be able to disregard that because you disregard your parents on everything, right? And have the conversation. The problem that I see today is the media has done such a good job at dividing people that it's actually made people angry with each other. It has made people pick a side and be willing to basically that's the hill that they're ready to die on. And I think that it's scary because that too, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is part of the greater agenda. And I want to be clear as I start going through some of these options and things that we could see and how it's going to affect our markets. It doesn't just you're not just going to hear me say that the left, the left, the left. Listen, you can watch Fox News or you can watch CNN. Either way, I promise you, the mainstream media is still spinning a narrative in one direction or another. So none of the parties are exempt. And I really like to let people know that you might have, political leanings or just far right, far left, anything in between. The reality is they are all spinning some sort of a story. And that's why I try to, just use my objective thinking cap and say, does this make sense? No. Okay. Why would they do this? And I come to my own conclusions. And I think for myself, I don't just have somebody, tell me. I actually did probably laugh. I did a TikTok today. It said, I don't know why you idiots do your own research. I mean, the news media today gives you everything you need. You just read the headline. You've got the information right there. Why would you waste your time? I mean, it's got to be true. And obviously very, very tongue in cheek, but that's kind of where we're at. It's so much ever since I just said Joe Biden, but ever since Barack Obama took away it used to be illegal to push propaganda. And when Barack Obama was in, many people don't know this, I've talked about it a few times, that I forget what the issue was or what the law that was in place was, basically took that away. And now propaganda at that point was legally able to be pushed to you. And guess what? There was a reason for that. So, all right, so check this out. So here's a few things that in a GOP house, for any of you that don't know a GOP house, that's the grand old party, that's Republicans, right? Republicans could do some things. They could disband the January 6th committee. That's definitely been a wild topic. I think it's a very interesting, polarizing topic. They could investigate Hunter Biden. They could start a bunch of other investigations, and they could possibly impeach Biden. Let's touch on those real quick. So, not to go too deep into any of this, but why do these type of topics, the January 6th committee, the Hunter Biden, obviously impeaching, people would understand this, but why do topics like this matter so much? Is it just a big pissing match, Bill, or is there actually more at stake here that we maybe aren't always cognizant of?
Okay, well, I'll go with there's way more at stake. Okay. So you were eloquent and accurate when you talked about the media and the inability for our citizens to talk to one another, right? Back in the day, I was referring to congressmen from both parties would fight all day and argue all day and go drink at the same bar at night. Now, the reason for the rancor and, just the ugliness of it all, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, is that foreign intelligence services for years have been saying the way to take down the United States is divide the country against each other. I read a book called, I believe it's called Putin's Playbook. I got halfway through it. I couldn't read it anymore. I mean, foreign intelligence services are using our political debate and social media system to divide us against each other. Man. To the point where, like, an AOC, like her, don't like her, came up as a bartender from the Bronx. Yeah. She's now got to ride around in an armored vehicle with 5 bodyguards. Yeah. Right. I mean, so, these topics that you brought up to answer the question, okay, January 6th, Hunter Biden, impeach a guy that, is asleep by 2:00 in the afternoon. Right. They're all divisive topics that have nothing to do with who's running the Fed or who's running the government or how much money are we printing. So to say that that's the first thing that they would do, I think if that's the first thing that they would do, they're feeding right into what our enemies want. That said, it always makes for good theater, right? And there are bigger problems. And one of the things that concerns me about the election, while I'm just getting all the crazy stuff out, is that the best time to hit a Western democracy is during a change of power process when everyone's fighting with each other. So, wow. If the first thing they're going to do is fight over Hunter Biden, that would make me very concerned about the Republican Party, to be honest. Yeah, no doubt. I think that we have, this is a great thing. The Crypto Billy, a great person in our Discord, is always around, says, just use common sense, follow the golden rules, but speak your own truth. Quit worrying about offending everyone. If you're just speaking your beliefs, who cares if others don't agree? Be solid. Shout out, Billy. I totally agree with that. We are too worried about being politically correct. And unfortunately, the politically correct anymore, that goalpost, that end zone has moved. And it has moved drastically. The things that you are quote unquote correct or incorrect at this point are wild. I don't even need to get into them because I'm sure YouTube, because they've probably moved the end zone and the goalpost, would probably give me the good old boot or a smack on the back of the head for saying some things that ultimately are probably just truth. It's gotten so bad that I can't even have the open conversation on here. But if you ever meet me in person, for those of you that are going to the Prepper Boot Camp in May, if you've got yourself a bug out bag, right, number 0 through 212, we can talk all about it. So make sure you get it in. Hey, I don't have too many strikes on TikTok, so you'll probably hear me say it there too. But we're not trying to do that over here on YouTube. All right, so moving forward, with what you were saying though, Bill,
If the first thing they do go after is something like the Hunter Biden laptop or whatever, you're right. At that point, it is literally just a political pissing match to see who can make somebody else look bad and prove a point and this, that, and the third, even though I know there's a lot more there that they're actively going after. And there are absolutely some just wrongdoing that it looks like has been happening. But I think that's part of, somebody said earlier, arrest them all and start over, right? And
Right.
unfortunately, we have got to this pay to play system where, you know, you have people, let's talk about the crypto space. Sam Bankman-Fried, right? One of the wealthiest young men in the world. And who is he to the Biden administration? Well, he's the #2 campaign contributor. Now, do we think that it's any coincidence that the president that is in office right now, their #2 campaign contributor, is gobbling up everything available that has to do with crypto? I don't think that it is. Let me hear what your thoughts on that, Bill, are with that specifically. Have you been paying attention to Sam Bankman-Fried and what he's been doing? And did you know his affiliation with the Biden administration?
Well, I did not know about the Biden administration connection, but
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense, right? You want to, you know, it's kind of like you want to pay. It's like protection money in the old days. You know, you pay the Godfather to leave you alone.
Yeah.
So if Sam is out there gobbling up all the distressed assets, he's just gonna, you know, he's just gonna pay Uncle Sam directly to try to leave him alone and hope that, you know, it's not like Darth Vader and they don't turn around and change the deal like you did on Lando Calrissian, right? So
Yeah.
just because you write the check doesn't mean you get what you pay for. Because
Yeah.
again, you know, is the Joe Biden campaign running the country? I mean, who's running the country? Like if they did a hearing, they got to find out who's running the country. Powell, the deep state.
I think that's always up for debate, right? I mean,
Right. Who's running this show?
yeah.
Not the people you see on TV.
No, not at all. They are, and Miguel and I talk about it a lot. They are puppets, and there's a puppeteer pulling strings in the background. There's very high level things going on with the Fed, because guess what they control? The money, which we're going to get to here in a few minutes. So I think that that's very important. Always follow the money. I think that at its core is such a simple idea. When you're talking about criminal investigations, what's one of the first things they do? Doesn't matter if it's a murder, doesn't matter if it's drug trafficking, doesn't matter what it is. What do they do? If you talk to any police officer, they will tell you, follow the money, because almost every single time there is something financial tied to what is happening. The problem now is following the money is very, it's not even that I think it's hard to do. It's that you can't get anyone to actually get the truth out there. It's that they'll figure it out, and they'll keep it quiet, and they'll redact every single piece of paper that comes out. And so what does that do? It does the exact same thing as we were talking about. It creates division, because we can start talking about the laptop and we think that all this, that, the third, whatever. And then when they release any information and 98% of it is redacted, what did you get? You got nothing. You got literally another thing to argue about what theoretically was behind all those blacked out markings, right? So let's talk about Democratic controlled Senate. The lawmakers can do one thing, the main thing that they would want to do, and that's confirm judges. And I said this to you earlier, Bill. If that were to happen and they confirm more and more judges, to me, that says one thing. It says, hey, I want to get myself positioned for when the next person comes into office, that I got my people that I put in place that kind of owe me a little something. It seems like the good old boy system to me. Does it not?
Well, they want to pack the courts, right? Because that's their base. So the only way to change some of the, you know, let's call them social rulings that have come out of the court, is to change the number of people on the court, right? Because they've got to do something to make their base happy, right?
Yeah.
This is the blue, the Democrats, the left, you call them what you want.
Yeah.
Right. They would want judges so they could legislate from the bench, right? So it doesn't have to go through Congress. Like, what's the solution to gridlocked government? Well, pack the courts. And they've talked about it. And one thing we've learned from everybody, from our deep state to Putin, you know, if these guys say they're going to do it, if they say they're going to pack the courts, they're going to pack the courts if you let them.
Yeah.
Or if
Probably
they're
one of the
allowed.
only things you can probably count on. If
Yeah,
they say it.
if they're saying, yeah, if they mean business, because the social division, which can lead to social disorder, right? I mean, one of the reasons why they might talk about packing the courts is because there are certain people that are upset about social issues and inflation, right? It's very simple, right? No one is talking about the potential for social disorder in the United States around the election, right? If somebody's side loses, right? Are they going to take to the streets? Are they going to lose their minds? Right. I can think of certain scenarios where if somebody says, wow, I'm not getting my rights, or I'm not going to get those rights back, that, you know, they might throw a brick through a window. So, you know, financial markets really have not started paying attention to the election. They're not paying attention to the idea of social disorder if one side is unhappy with the results. And then, I don't know, later on in the broadcast or now, I've got a reverse redact. I've got the Treasury releasing something telling you what the real problem is out there, you know, which is why governments may have to pursue distractions, but you can cue me on that later.
Well, yeah, don't forget that you have that, because when we get into the financial side, which we're going to get there relatively quickly, I definitely want to hear that. And so, yeah, it's kind of wild with what the agendas at play are and what they actually do by putting people in positions and places. But at its core, it's having your buddies on the playground on your side
Right.
on your side of the court is kind of what's happening. So if Republicans win both chambers, I'll tell you the number one thing that's going to happen, Bill, right? So most of the time, the power that's not, or the party that's not in power, always picks up seat in Congress in midterm elections. That's literally almost always. And the Republicans, I think, only need to pick up 5 out of 435 to grab the majority, and then just 1 out of 35 in the Senate. So there's a lot of talks that says that, you know, there's a very good chance that they win both, but we'll see. Number one is stymie the agendas at hand. Like the first 2 years, Republicans have worked on a number of issues that actually were kind of bipartisan, like infrastructure, veteran health benefits. There was some gun safety stuff that kind of, you know, snuck in there or whatever. But at the end of the day, the goal still at hand is to block overall his policies and agenda, because they don't agree with a lot of it, right? They don't agree with how our money's being spent. Somebody said that you know, they would hold up the court vacancies. So that's definitely a thought. A super polarizing topic that we're not really going to touch tonight is the national abortion ban. That's definitely something that is going to you know, be tossed out there in terms of how they want to, you know, handle that. And then one that I wasn't familiar with it calling this, and you might know, you might have known this. I didn't really realize this, but sunsetting. Basically, the where Congress is like reauthorizing like Social Security and Medicare every 5 years or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, what it seems to me is that you have a total change in where things are right now, and it's just all of a sudden trying to fight literally back against to head the other direction. And I want to know, when does it become about the people, Bill? That's what I want to know, because that's why I hate politics so much. In the regard of when I say hate politics, it's why if somebody ever said, you know, Keeper, you should run for this, that, or the third. Listen, first of all, thank you, but no. And the reason is because I feel like everyone is corrupted in the system or gets corrupted. Who was it that said, was it Batman, when they said you live to see yourself, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain,
the bad guy, right?
Yeah, and I would never want to do that, but I feel like it maybe starts with this like this just beautiful idea of what you could do to change things, and then it heads into hey, I just found out who's really pulling the strings. I found out I can't do anything and everything that I want to do, because I'm going to end up, you know, not alive anymore or something wild. But how do you have any thoughts on how we can get back to make this about the people, because it sure doesn't feel like it. It really doesn't. It feels like
Right.
it feels like a bunch of grown kids fighting about what they agree or disagree on, and then they'll tell you about it on the news, depending on which news broadcast you watch.
Okay, well, there's two ways to do this, right? There's the sort of the second American Revolution. That's what I would call it, right? A lot of people talk Civil War.
Yeah.
I would think it's just some sort of second American Revolution. All right. I don't know what that looks like. You know, maybe it's like a mano a mano type thing, or maybe it's social disorder that makes what happened during COVID, you know, look like a Cub Scout picnic. Okay. That's choice one. Choice two is, you know, we vote with our feet in the world of economics. And I'm sure you'll be shocked to know that one of the most striking things that people could do, right, is crypto. Because there's nothing more embarrassing than being at an FOMC meeting going, wow, are you watching them moon these alternative currencies, right? Like, you know, DeFi crumbled and they laughed. Okay, so they got the last laugh on DeFi.
Mm-hmm.
But when the best way to rebel against the system is to get paid to do it, right? You don't have to die for your cause. You can make money for your cause. And I'm just thinking, like, you know, I've been talking all week about everyone is falling asleep on crypto, right? As Satoshi's vision, right? The sun is rising on his vision. So, you know, want to vote? Okay, well, you can go vote and hope that works out, but you can get, you know, a ledger for Keep's baby and vote crypto. By the way, on that note, please hit the like button for Keep. Help the guy out. Come on.
Appreciate you. So there's when we dive into all of the, you know, nuanced things, we could be here for 6 years talking about it. But you guys follow us for crypto content for the most part, right? So I do want to get into some financials, and what a better person to have on here than you, Bill, for some political financials. So I want to talk about this in just a second, but I can't do that without at least showing the other side of it. So the other side is just very simply, if Democrats were to keep both chambers, which I think most people this is the scenario that's least likely of the three scenarios. Number one, they're going to take another shot at a bunch of liberal priorities, right? Protections for abortion, same-sex marriage, voting rights, you know, things that has been tried and continued to be contested all the time. That's one thing for sure. Second thing, and this is no surprise to me, is they would limit what a President Trump could do if he became president again, or maybe even try to keep him from running. I think this is the first time I've ever seen where if you bring up the candidate in office, inevitably the last candidate's name has to come up in a negative notion. Like, I've never seen anything like it. You can say, yeah, I just really disagree with some of the policies that are at play. They don't make sense, this, that, and the third. And the rebut is, but Trump. And it's like,
Right.
were we even there? Were we talking about that? And so, yeah, it's the least likely scenario of the three. But if it were to happen, yeah, now all of a sudden we can continue to try to push towards some of those agendas and make things more difficult to come back from, if you will, if there was a President Trump 2024. Let me ask you this, Bill. Trump 2024, is this a possibility, or do you think they're going to stymie it?
Well, Trump has serious legal problems. So, I mean, you know, don't make any illusions about the level of his legal problems.
Yeah.
Now, that said, okay, Trump was like a pretty boy frontman for the Atlantic City mob to do New York real estate when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, legal problems? Well, gangsters always have legal problems. So,
yeah.
Do you think legal problems are going to deter this guy? I mean, if this guy is not wearing an orange jumpsuit, he's running for president. Like, people need to get their head wrapped around this.
I agree completely.
Right. Like, I have a friend who is like very in the know on politics.
Yeah.
And he actually was of the opinion, and still is, that that it could wind up being not just Trump running, but it could be a Hillary Trump rematch, because Joe he may not be able to go.
Right. I could see
So the Hillary Trump rematch could happen. Now, as far as the Democrat, as far as like an all blue government, there's two things about that. One, if you had an all blue government, I can say with some certainty that your wealth will be held against you.
Yeah.
Period. Okay. And then the other thing that you have to do in political campaigns is, because you were talking about the dialogue. So don't just pay attention to what the people you like are saying. Pay attention to what the people you don't like are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because if you don't like certain policies regarding economics, you may listen to that talk and go, oh, that could never happen. Okay. Well, one day it could. So, if somebody wins or somebody loses, you pay attention to what the person who affects your day job, your money, your 401k.
Yeah.
If they're talking about, what I would call a bail-in, there's bailing out, which is, the government prints money to save the UK pension funds. And then there's the bail-in where they just go directly into your bank account if they need money. So,
and that's what I'm worried about as it relates to going to CBDC, which is a whole nother conversation. But as we move towards a digital dollar that actually has a smart contract, the ability to do that is there. And I get so much flack for some of the stuff that I've talked about on TikTok in relation to that, people telling me that I'm just freaking nuts and this, that, and the third. But hey, I was nuts about a number of other things that were around the 2020 time as well. And now all of a sudden I'm not so nuts. And so I just continue to hold my beliefs in terms of if it to me in my mind, if I can make 2 + 2 = 4 without adding some sort of a wild scenario to it, if it just kind of lines up and it makes sense for the money and it makes sense for the government, and all of a sudden we've hired 84,000 new IRS agents, and you start stacking things up, and it's like, listen, there is such a thing as a coincidence, but when you stack a whole bunch of coincidences next to each other, you know what we call that? We call that a game plan, right? And that's where I think I see things headed as it relates to that. I think it's scary. I think that people need to understand that we are tiptoeing, maybe even walking slowly towards being very much like China. In the Detroit airport, Bill, did you know they have a screen, a huge screen up that it's using facial rec to do this, but I don't understand how I can see it, but somebody else can't see it. But when I'm walking through the airport, it shows on a huge screen. It says my name, it says Keeper, and then all of my flight stuff, right? And it's a huge, I'm talking about a size of, 50 yards wide. It's big. And I can see it with all my information, where I need to go, all that. The person next to me can't. If you're telling me that we have that technology, that facial recognition is allowing me to see a digital screen and not the person next to me, do you not think that there is a reason for that? There is a reason, and you need to be paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, I got the idea of your wealth being held against you from hearing Edward Snowden at Consensus, right? So, you can like him or not like him. I think the primary reason to not like him was that when he blew the whistle on the civilian surveillance program, he probably drove that surveillance program into like some deeper, darker place where they don't report to anybody.
Yeah.
They don't report to anybody.
Yeah.
So that surveillance program, that surveillance technology, it's one of the smartest things. I'm not kissing butt here, but I think one of the smartest things that I've seen in crypto, honestly, is keep trying to connect people with, canned goods, self-defense, precious metals with the idea of crypto. Because again, in a world like this, the question you have to ask yourself is, how do you be free? Right? If they know what if they have your biometrics and they know everything, right? Okay. Can we stop them from doing that? Probably not. But what we can do is go home and say, all right, what's left for me? How can I be free?
Yeah.
Right? We can put what's left of the American dream and American freedom to our use, regardless whether we're protecting ourselves from foreign governments or domestic enemies.
Yeah, I agree with you. And freedom is people look at it differently. I do just want to give Kenton a shout out. I think it was Kenton gave us a $5 super chat a little bit ago. I posted it up there. Just want to say thank you. I think it was Kenton. Yeah, Kenton said great combo tonight, Keeper and Bill. Thank you. We thank you, brother, for supporting the stream and everybody else, obviously, as well. Dave Digital says this stream will never be seen again. I laugh at that, but that's part of the problem, right? It's part of the problem that genuinely I understood, and so did you, exactly what this person is saying. You know what I mean? Definitely, probably, I could see it. But yeah, so let me ask you this, Bill. Let's talk about how the stock market has reacted to midterms in the past. Okay, so basically, as I see it, not every second year sees real declines, but annualized returns are smaller. The report on presidential cycles used the Dow Jones to show basically 12.7% on year one, 3.1% for year two. That's the midterm year. That's a drastic difference, right? 14.8% for year three. That's pre-election year. And then 7.4% for year four. And as we go down farther, and we can talk about this more, but basically it breaks down on the S&P, the average return and for how many years of what it looks like, whether it's a unified government, a Democratic president, or Republican president, unified Congress, Democratic, Republican. You get where I'm saying, right? Ultimately, what is your guess, Bill? You might even know the answer. Okay, let's start off with this. Unified government. Actually, no. Democratic or Republican president, S&P 500 returns, who's got it? Average returns.
Okay. Actually, I think the Democrats have got average returns, right?
Okay.
Because they usually come in after pro-business policies. If the Democrats take power after that, they wound up benefiting from the equity market.
Dude,
I'd guess.
This is why we have you on the show, bro. Well, besides you're freaking awesome, but so many people, and it's funny. It's really funny that it's great that you see that, but a lot of people don't, and kind of don't give credit where credit's due, even on the other side of things, right? Where if the person that you loved was in power and then somebody else comes in and things are like super screwy, like, well, maybe there was some residual that's trying to, you know what I mean? I think that goes both ways, but I think that it's pretty interesting as you go down the line, how it breaks down. I'll just tell you real quick, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So unified government, 11.2%, S&P 500 average return over 31 years. Okay. Now, unified with a Democratic president, 10.5%, unified with a Republican president, 12.9%. So that's with the unified government. Unified Congress with Democrat, 13%, 4.9%, Republican president, Democratic Congress. And then split Congress with a Democratic president. Split Congress was 8.6%, and then Democratic president 13.6% and Republican 7.3%. But it's exactly as you're saying. I read the article a little bit further, and it does suggest exactly what you said. It was literally talking about how the economic policies and the Democrats on that first year when they take over, because it seems to go back and forth, benefit from some of the policies that are put in place for big business and things like that. So talk to me about that. Let's say we come into midterms. We're talking. Everybody wants to know what's happening right now, right? We've seen crypto following the stock market very closely for a while now. Who knows if it ever will decouple. So let's go into it and let's make the assumption first that the Republicans take over on both fronts. How's the stock market going to react in crypto in turn? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if the Republicans take over, right? I mean, because right now the data that I follow shows that it's like basically they got 2 seats up for grabs, right? They can get Georgia or Pennsylvania. Okay. So they could pick up a 2-seat majority. Okay. So if Republicans are running Congress, I think capital markets would like that because there would be less fear about capital gains taxes, and probably less fear about any more cockamamie energy policies. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if it could get any worse than it is now. So, but I mean, at least they could, at least stop it from getting worse on the energy front and maybe bring them to the table somewhat, right? Because I do think if the Republicans are in control of Congress, Biden, it's easy to make jokes about him, but he is old enough to remember a time when the parties would negotiate, right? So even though, he's only good till 2 p.m., between 8 and 2, he may negotiate with the Republicans on social issues and capitulate on energy.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, he's got to have an excuse for his base to capitulate on energy. And the way I think that they would do it is try to get some sort of social compromise about the social issues we talked about, right? Or the obvious social issues coming from the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Try to get some sort of compromise, and then he could fully capitulate on energy. Because let's face it, the best way to stop tyrants running energy-rich regimes is to drive the price of energy down.
Yeah.
With higher production. So,
the energy thing is an interesting one for me. It's funny that we talk about this. I bring up my TikTok a decent little bit, but I did a TikTok today talking about how if you don't understand that the energy narrative is all about actually enslaving you, then you need to wake up. And I kind of talked about how, the facts support that all of this, carbon output and carbon, it's all, as Miguel would say if he was here, fugazi. Because at the end of the day, I'll break one down for you. You jump in your Tesla that is operated by lithium. That lithium is mined overseas in Africa by some of the cheapest labor in the world, right? How did we get huge equipment over there? It's huge equipment that uses fossil fuels to dig this up out of the earth. By the way, we have no way to dispose of it. How did we get the equipment there? Well, the equipment had to be built. The equipment was built in these massive factories that, oh, by the way, have some of the largest carbon footprints anywhere, right? Just to even get the equipment made. Then we got to ship the equipment overseas on a massive boat. What does it use? Fossil fuel. Like, if you go down the line and then the end result when you get there, if you break down the amount of carbon like footprint that we're having, if that's the conversation we actually want to have, it makes zero sense. You would have to literally not have a head on your shoulders to not see that does not make sense. It does not work. But they continue to push this narrative. And the scary thing, Bill, is I do believe that when the central bank digital currency stuff comes out, that part of what they're going to do is genuinely give us individual like carbon usage credits or something like that, where, and a lot of people have told me I'm crazy for this one too, but I've heard other people talk about it as well. It's not like this was like my idea. It's just when it came across, I said, wait a minute, that makes sense. They're trying to push everybody in California over to, electric vehicles, right? Well, the power grid can't even hold that up. You got rolling brownouts and all these other issues that are happening, and we're nowhere near being there, right? There's all of these other narratives that are being pushed, but our infrastructure just can't even hold it, hold up to what they're trying to do. So I don't know. I could see where they basically say, listen, you can only use this much and this much gas within a week. You can only go on so many flights in a year. You can only, and basically pick all the carbon things. You know what the wild part about it is, Bill, on top? If you thought that wasn't wild, the elites will still be flying in their private freaking jets, and they will be operating their yachts, and they will be doing everything that they're doing now while they'll get off their private jet, and that absolutely is terrible for the environment, right? And then talk to you about how you need to be working to protect and save the planet. Get out of here.
Right. Everybody will have some sort of social credit score that may or may not be attached to something environmental, which again makes sense. The climate change debate is, so powerful that, whoever takes control of the government, their view of climate change is very easily imposed on other people. However, again, in my sort of thinking, certain parties and certain thinking is always wrong. Like, for example, did you know that in Norway, it is now more expensive to charge a Tesla than it is to fuel a gasoline vehicle because of the electricity prices?
Really?
So yes, it is in Norway. That is a fact. Okay. So it is already,
Wow.
the flippening is happening at the pump. Okay. And then, of course, there is the comedy that you referred to, that if everyone's driving a Tesla, the power plants are going to have to be fueled by coal, which ironically, I believe after the financial crisis of 2008, when, a certain government, a certain party took power, coal production in the United States was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Like the state of Kentucky was a ghost town, right? Because coal was shut down. Now coal is trading like everything else in the commodities market, from the bottom left to the top right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They can't get enough because, again, we've got to power electric vehicles with coal. And I guess we're forgetting about what that does to the planet, because, is it really about the environment, or is it about somebody else telling you what to do? Like, are they going to tie your social credit score to universal basic income? Right? In other words, they'll say, all right, you're $500 a month short of your bills. Okay. If your social credit score is this, we'll give you enough money to be able to pay your bills. Right. And then, that's going to be like it. I mean, look, they could do it in the UK right now. That whole country goes dark at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
My daughter's going to Italy to study abroad in January, and talk about a bug out bag. I mean, I'm going to have like a rapid reaction response to the airport, like some movie, right? Because, there's going to be no heat over there. It's going to be like the hot system. She's going to go to class on the Tauntaun with Luke. I can't believe it's going to happen over there in Europe. But that place is in such a state where they could say, hey, you want to pay your power bill? Hey, you want to get the sugar that you need to survive? Well, just do this. Just ride your bike, buy an electric car, whatever.
Yeah. This is the question I kind of want to end with right here. What do we do about it? So I think, and I will say, I think part of what we are doing right now is a huge part of it. People could argue that, but the conversations, it needs to start somewhere. The conversations need to be had. I think that social media has been a double-edged sword, where people are able to get more information out. But again, there's also a lot of information that sucks, or when I say sucks, like is not good on both sides, right? Just get bad information out there, or partial information, a headline, or, whatever the case may be. But I think the conversations need to be had, and I think they need to be had at a level where the common person, the common man, right, is able to then put some real pressure on because our I don't think that the actual social structure is not, I don't think it's ever going to change where, there's always a king of sorts, right? That is never going to change, right? Like, a life's not fair, and there's going to be people that are going to be born into power. There's going to be people that are going to take power. There's going to be all these different things, but the reality is there's always going to be a hierarchy, right? So if we're able to have the conversation here, and enough people are having the conversation, and enough people are happy or unhappy in one direction or another, then we're actually, hopefully, going to at least push on our people. They always say, call your senator, and everybody's like, yeah, sure. And nobody does it. Right. But I'll bet you, if actively we all actually sat down and made it a point to call our senator and to reach out, could we make a change? I think that it's a real thing that we could be doing, but I think the conversations need to happen first. What are your thoughts, Bill?
Okay. Well, when do you bring people to the table? Like, the question is, you can have a conversation, but in my mind, it's like, how do you get them to listen? Right? What makes them listen?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what makes them listen is, say, when crypto becomes a political force. In other words, I happen to know for a fact that, when there were crypto things up in Congress, I mean, you could not get through you couldn't call your senator. You couldn't email anybody. The crypto people, they broke the communication mechanisms for you to call your congressman. So if crypto people, right, because it's just one number, right? I mean, just be a Bitcoin maxi for a moment.
Okay.
Right? There's that one number, right? Politicians wake up to two numbers every day, three numbers. They wake up to Dow Jones, 30-year mortgage rates, and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. And if Bitcoin becomes this gigantic, like, international middle finger, right? And all of a sudden, people who would normally maybe not get along, or young people who would maybe not care, all of a sudden start caring, start voting, start calling congressmen. And the next thing you know, I don't know, you got guys like, Andrew Yang, who are, who have actively been trying to appeal to the crypto community, right? Eventually you're going to, I mean, you've got crypto senators, you've got crypto mom over on the regulatory front. Politicians are going to figure this out. They're going to figure out, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So the answer to your question is, when does the conversation occur? When the squeaky wheel gets really squeaky. And I think that's going to be the Bitcoin price, right? Or a fight over whether or not you can have crypto or not.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that that's kind of where things started in the crypto space in the response to the financial crisis. There was a lot of predatory lending and some things that were just downright absolutely crooked, awful, and a lot of people suffered as a result. And so, yeah, I do think that if it indeed is truly a decentralized form of hard money, I think that we have the opportunity, even if it just stays as gold, but it becomes actually gold and it's that large of a center focal point, and it stays decentralized, and we don't find out that, like, oh yeah, by the way, the CIA really did create this, and it's all been whatever the case may be. I agree. I think we have an opportunity to be we the people in that regard, as we said at the start of the show. Follow the money. And if the money is in Satoshis, now we've got a conversation to have. So, Crypto Fam, we appreciate you for being here. Bill, thank you very much for coming on, brother. I really do appreciate you. A little bit of a long stream tonight, but we had a lot to get into. So, family, we love you guys. We appreciate you. You could have been anywhere tonight, but you were here with Debate Crypto. Make sure you are following Bill Noble on his Twitter. His Twitter link is down below. Follow all of our socials, guys. Get involved in Danger Close Alpha. We are continuing, as the faction war happens, we are continuing to, what I don't want to say promote. We are giving more and more information, and the factions are getting out more and more information that is actual information on how to prep. They're putting together presentations right now, just little mini presentations on their specific faction. Guys, get in there, learn something, pull value out of an NFT without having to resell it. Or pull the value and then resell it. Go for it, right? Make some money. We're all about it. But we love you. Have a blessed night. Question everything. Trust nothing. And until next time, hodl like it's hot. We will see you soon.